day off, and it was very unproductive. I didn't do any coding, I did some thinking about it. And like so often, it's reached this dangerous stage where it's a lot of fun to play with. And I have played with it quite a bit. I've been anxious about the clipping, but I've made a few pretty huge renders, which I won't bother showing off for the sake of my own hard disk replicating video, recording video. There's some huge renders which it succeeded in completing, a few tens of billions of lines. So I'm feeling okay about it, and it's fun to play with. I'd like to get on to making other changes and testing other ways of doing the rendering, and making changes, the changes that I spoke about last time, to the way the colours are calculated, so that the gradient sets work with their alpha values. But really, to do those things, I want to think in order, because there's a lot that needs to happen. At the moment, the app's a load of fun, and I can use it, but it's got massive holes in it, and the code itself is bad. Well, the code is it's ugly. I don't know how much the changes I will make will actually improve the code, but it'll make it a lot easier to navigate and to... Anyway. So, to do things which are higher priority nearer the top, and I will do some subdivision. Code reorganization. I realise how much I rely on automatic spell checkers all the time. Rendering period to do. The rendering period is what the program does when it goes into a rendering state, and these two things are associated. Lower down the list is improve guide appearance. At the moment the guides are all lines, simple lines drawn in a colour. Some are drawn additively, some are just drawn, I think, with their alpha value. They need to become dashed, they need to be more distinct. Reskin GUI, not massive. I was sure there was something else. I want to get back to filling in some of these details, but I have a quick think about if there was any other large scale. After rendering, and more important than improving the guide appearance, is explore rendering options. Rendering options. Quickly I will array division, array entry division, non-linear, linear. I have an idea that if the general number of times that a pixel is crossed in an individual render is high, like more than 255, then it's possible that renders where a lot of intermediate sort of values are skipped could have their could have just their values halved, add one and half them, which I think will just round to the nearest whole number. Or if shapes sort of have points, so to speak, they get very, very bright, sharp points, which are many, many times higher. A non-linear scale might bring those points down and compress everything down. Now, I haven't exactly gone through the sums of that in my mind, but I think that it would make better use of the colour scale that is realistically available. I'll have to have a think, and I'd like to just do some trials, because whatever I kind of sit down and figure out that an individual pixel might become, it's going to be hard to visualize the cumulative effect of lots of lines crossing. So it's a thing I want to do, but it kind of has to come after this. Again, I'll just make very quick notes. Dashing, varying thickness, hide, I think something like hide hotkey or option, just to quickly get rid of the guides. So those are some guide things. There are probably others. Reskin GUI, not that important. Code reorganization and rendering GUI. One thing about, well, how do I indicate that something belongs in both of these? It's not very easy to do in this. I'll tell you what I'll do for now. And it is make rendering process external. That's not the right word. Make rendering separate process. And here, making the rendering a separate process. So really, it's make rendering a separate process. Other also in the code reorganization is divide the cursor into subclasses. I'm just going to do that within a cursor, just to group some big sets of information together. A rendering period to do make rendering into a separate process. Options. Lock app. Lock app. Excluding working anim. Lock app excluding progress report. Bar. Return to editing. What was that? That might include animation over render button indicating work. Now, I don't know what my options here actually. Return to edit. When I say animation over render button indicating work, I imagine some kind of thing happening over either static or animation, either button, depending on which you've clicked, or both, because maybe I'd only want one render of either type happening, but effectively doing the same thing, or I indicate that rendering is happening, similar to a working animation or a progress report or bar on those buttons. I disable them, or I leave them. Or I leave them enabled and just let you start multiple renders. And if starting a process is, for my own code, as sort of easy, I say in quotes because I don't really know, if it's as easy as it seems, then that's fine. But there is another separate issue here. So this is just locking the app. Locking app means lowering refresh and restricting viewport. So maybe only calling update on the window, I don't know, once a second. Only redrawing a tiny section of the viewport in the center, maybe wherever I've elected, because I could just place a gadget on the screen which appears to be a window, go into a rendering state for the app, in which state the window is not redrawn except a little area inside that gadget which shows a twirling anything, an hourglass, or initially it might just be a set of characters animating, showing that, inside a label. Anyway, the status of that will depend on what happens in this separate process and how Monkey handles, and how I am able to understand what running a separate process means. New main code. Okay. I really will have to think about this, so I may as well just almost immediately, I think, start coding. I'm going to get rid of pixmap, texture, time, math, data buffer I'll leave. It's one of the things I hope to experiment with most quickly after getting the rendering out of the recursor. So actually for now I will get rid of everything else. Not Snapper, because Snapper is actually going to become... When do I include Snapper? Presumably here. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Snapper is going to become where everything else from Recursor goes. At the moment I've got, what have I got? Draw type, project and Recursor. They will stay here. Don't know about draw type, that's a weird thing which I don't... Well, however now. Anyway. Corner set corner, gradient set gradient, color button, palette, color request, all of those things can come into Snapper. Snapper is just this relatively small bit of code. It's associated for now entirely with the recursor. All these things are as well, really. They could be taken out and used pretty well elsewhere, but anyway. So I'll leave that open because it's going to become something. And I'm not going to bother opening a new file. I'm going to new one, and it's going to be called rren. Well, first off, where is it going to be? I think it's going to be in code, the cursor, and I think it's going to be here, and I think it's going to be called rrender. Is that a sensible name? And then I realise I forget so quickly, actually, how does monkey work? How does this work again? I don't know if I need Mojo for this, do I? Yeah, I do, because I'm making a... Well, do I? I'm making a pix map and saving it. Okay, and I will not be using the GUI space. DB? Forget what DB even is. That is pretty bad. Anyway, app instance, app window. Now, something I realize is my plan to make this work is to save a copy of the current project as you're going to render it and load it with the uh, render code, program, separate process. The project class is already separate to the recursor class, but I have to separate it more, I guess. Like, I don't want to bother loading the recursor class in my render because it's a bunch of rubbish I never need. I need this because I do need to know the output width, height, x, y scale. Need to know the line width, draw mode. Need to basically, need all this stuff. This bit I don't really need, but that's irrelevant, that's for the purpose of saving it. So, I want to include the project class, but I don't want to bother with the recursor class. There's nothing intrinsic inside. Like, the project class is quite small and simple. It's just the information associated with it, and create, close, load and save. Close does nothing as well, so what I do, I have to get project away from recursor. Excuse me. So maybe the way to do that is with this, and maybe I'll save this as something else. Maybe I'll call it here, and I will call it recursor. What is it? It's like recursor extra, support, recursor classes. That's kind of what I've gone with before with GUI classes. I'll go with that. Recursor classes exists. Alright, okay, I went with it before already. Okay, for the time being, let's have a little look at recursor classes, see what on earth I'm being. I'll bet it's empty. Pretty much. What did I put in Snapper? Recursor space, channel space, GUI space. Ugh. Okay, I will just save over it. Yeah. Yes, I do. And I want to go to recursor, and I want to include recursor classes and not snapper. Okay. Snap space, recursor classes, namespace, snap space. Okay, well, that will still work. That's bad. Like, I can make this namespace stuff better. I'm not really very accustomed to it. I know it's really important. Like, I'm using this as, well, recursor space. It is pretty weird. Recursor classes uses snap space, worse. That has to be different now. I really have to change it, and I have to think about this. Like, well, no, what about the cursor space here, eh? I think I should be using a cursor space. Can Can I just call both of these recursor space? I want to use this separate to this. I think that this is going to be our class space. And so this will use our class space. Our class space. And then what I don't know is stuff like in here, if I say this uses recursor space, because recursor space has this command kind of within it, does this get our class space? Well, I'm going to say using recursor space, using our class. Come on, come on. Oh, I wish you'd have guessed that. Class space. Okay. Right, so in recursor, so now I kind of do have to not concern myself, but think inside our render, it's going to get all of our classes, recursor classes. Which is nae great, is it? This is why I should have better, I don't know. I want to say source management, that probably means something specific. I should manage my source better. It's these things, corner set, corner, gradient set, gradient. Yeah, I think I will have them. This is going to be weird, it's going to be interesting. The GUI parts, I suppose, could stay, because like these things actually, I should stop using that word. These things will be referred to. The gradient set and the gradient, the corner set and the corner, pretty sure those things are all referred to, yeah. So, the palette isn't really, but the palette is kind of part of the GUI. The palette, okay, right, I'm wittering, I'm going to just, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange these pieces of code and I'm going to see if it still runs. To take a lot of, he's so gentle with my stupid mouse wheel. Okay baby, you come with me. You do all that. Recursor, standard module, general space, GUI space. I don't think I need, okay, right. I would love to be able to quick scroll here. Okay, I've got general space and GUI space in here. I don't think I need GUI space. I don't think I need recursor, well no, recursor main space is like the main code's main space. I don't know if this is going to work. I'm hoping it doesn't need recursor main space because I'm hoping to use this outside of recursor main space. So, corner set now, this whatever I was thinking there, I'm just getting rid of. Corner set. Can come immediately after here. And the corner itself. Oh, tediously slow. gradient set, yeah, yeah. Man, I really need to go in and... Oh, I didn't do that right. Undo. I really need to sort out. Oh, come on, dude, what? Yeah, it looks like I really need to sort out the gradient. How? Okay, there we go. The gradient set class. There's cleaning up to be done in there. Anyway, sorry, getting confused by simple copy pasting. Gradient. And the next is color button. This was just something I was using as a reference. Okay, well, immediately draw type recursor, color button, gradient button, palette color request. Okay. What on earth? Yeah, notes, notes, notes. So now I've got recursor classes and I'm just going to try and run this. What are you going to say to me? Well, good start. It's running with the debugger off, I think. Yeah. So, it'll work or it'll crash out. Assuming it does work, that's this shaved off. This is pretty... I have to improve this. I can't just use get data, I have to clamp it. No, not here. That's not right. I think it's here. I definitely have to think harder about this because I had to clamp. This is insane. Doing the recording, I can only assume, God, I'm at 28 minutes, is hard work for it. Because that was a long compile. Okay. Still working, no crashing. Doing what I did didn't worry it. Okay. I'll do another little, just think about my next move. I have sort of, I wouldn't say achieved much today, but I have shaved this off. So now when I import the recursor in main, I get recursor classes with it, and in our render I can import recursor classes alone, and that will allow me to load a project, create and load a project, and get into its guts. And I'll just and I'll have a think about this because I guess I do probably want STD, probably want Mojo, and well, actually this is the stuff I want. Okay, actually fine, I'm going to take everything. I'm going to take more than that, I'm going to take all the way down to main. don't think I need these things. Never really have. Just have them out of paranoia. I'm hoping I don't need a window here. I'm not planning to have a window. Debug I will keep. Mojo extra. Do I really want Mojo or Mojo extra here? I think I don't know, so I'm going to start off with saying no. I don't think I want string time. General I do want. Recursor I don't want. GUI I don't want. I really hope I'm not doing something silly there. But what I do want is import code recursor classes. And I don't want GUI, and I don't want recursor space. I do want our class space, and I do want that. I could probably make this a lot leaner, and I'm going to say I don't want Mojo for now. It might turn out I actually am using some bit of Mojo. Now, what happened? Do I need a new app instance? How does this work? I forget. App run, and then I get an update. Can I just stick it all in here? I really am so sort of this kind of stuff really exposes my naivety and a lack of experience. What I really plan to do, in fact, is I'm going to rem all this out just to I will remind myself that very possibly I do end up having to do something like that. But what I really want to do is get the command line. No, I don't even need that. Not for this. But do I? Maybe I do. Because, I mean, because this is so, I'm associating this with the editor so much, I could just have the editor place the project file in a place that this program knows it'll be. But I won't do that. I will have it pass the project file. I suppose I should ponder whether or not I actually want to shave this into two other programs, whether or not one should be run when an animation is rendered in one. I don't think so. I mean, they're both basically doing the same thing. I think that I just have to have a way of requesting from this code one thing or the other. One way would be the command line. One way would be that I just stick a flag inside the project class that gets saved. It's a weird thing to do, but project is not a very big class. It's already saving some things which are just about, not really to do with the render as much to do with its setup and its editing. So I could just stick a little flag in here which is render still, and if it's true, then what the program knows is that it has to save a still image to a file name that's provided one way or the other, and if it's an animation it has to render an animation that's provided one way or the other. Has to render an animation to a file name that's provided. Wow, because where's the file name? Like, actually, I do pass this stuff, file path and name. By the time you're... Nah, that's different. That's a project file path and name. This is just for an exported image or animation. Again, you know, it could all be in a file name. If you export a pung, then you're going to get an image. If you export an MP4, then you're going to get an animation. Don't much like that, because I do, if you want, I want you to be able to name it whatever you want. Although I say that, but at the moment I enforce file names because FFmpeg, FFmpeg goes by file names to decide final file types by default. I could change that as well. That would be the sensible thing to do, wouldn't it? To really make it an option in the export mode, in the export options, however I present them, that you decide what file type you're going to use, and it doesn't matter what file name you put in. But on the other hand, maybe even though I like I like how sort of explicit that is, maybe intuitively it's less explicit, and that you stick in a file name and that's what you get. And I build in stuff that says file name not supported when I recompile FFmpeg to be more modest in what it does. I only want it to really do a handful of things. Anyway, I'm wittering just now because I'm coming to the end of this, and I'm just going to start again very shortly with, I think, just incorporating details of how the render should go into the project class. It means I'll lose another default setup for my code, but never mind.